Okay guys, welcome back. So we're decided today to do a little test on comparing some different iron shafts that you guys have been asking us to compare. So
Yes.
Across the line of every company, they have their own version of what they consider to be a low launch, low spin shaft, and we thought we'd put that to the test across the wide spectrum.
Yeah, so we tested the Project X, the Dynamic Gold, and the Nippon, that's the Modus?
Yes.
Modus.
Yeah.
So I guess the conversation usually, I mean, we get lots of comments, so the conversation usually starts with, you know, I bought Callaway's and they came with KBS Tours, or I bought Titleist and they came with Dynamic Golds.
Yeah.
So, you know, if people are getting those and that's considered the stock shaft, they're not the same shaft. You know, they're different, fit for different players, and if you come to get custom fit, you would get one or the other. It's not, you know, it's not a universal shaft, even though they're sold that way. So the test that we did was mainly to say, okay, who do these shafts suit? You know, what are the characteristics that they promote, and you know, what should you be looking for in a fitting?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. And they all have their own little kind of design, sort of, you know, characteristics, and every player's going to feel those and see those come out a little bit differently once they hit them. So again, you know, for the consistency of the test, we kept you hitting the same head.
Yep. So we had this is the Miura forged cavity.
That's the forged head, so 31 degrees aloft.
Yep.
So, you know, nothing that was going to, you know, spike the ball speed too high or spin too low. We wanted to keep the numbers pretty general.
Right.
Okay, so kept that the same, standard length, and we played X-Flex in all four shafts.
Yeah, I was hitting them, but all things considered, if it was a lower ball speed, you should see the same. Like if you played a 5.0 versus an R300, they compare kind of, as long as you get the right one to compare.
Well, I think that's where we'll kind of get into it, you know, with this one, because, you know, when we talk about shaft comparisons, so we get a lot, you know, can you guys compare Project X to Dynamic Gold?
Yes.
Well, we can, but we're not really comparing apples to apples. Right. So when we compare an X100 to a Project X 7.0, we are comparing 230 gram shafts.
Yes.
When we do an R300 to a 5.0, we're comparing a 110 gram shaft, which is the Project X 5.0, and a 127 gram shaft, which is the R300.
Right, big weight difference.
Huge weight difference. So that's the big thing, guys. It's not so much about, you know, always the flex profile. There's the weight of it. There's obviously where the kind of the stiffness is concentrated.
Yes.
That's very important. So is it butt section? Is it tip section? Is it more midsection?
Right.
You know, we were talking earlier about the Nippon Modus line, and you've got the 130 gram Modus, which we tested as well, X-Flex.
That's this one here.
One of the most, if not the, you know, stiffest butt section of any iron shaft out there.
On the Modus?
On the Modus 130.
130, okay.
But it also has one of the softer tip sections of any of the kind of...
And then we did the 120, which is stiffer
tip section,
softer in the butt section.
Well, softer certainly than the 130, but it's relatively stiff in the butt section as well, but really soft in the middle.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, so they all have their different sort of bend profiles across the length of the shaft.
Right, interesting.
Okay, so let's kind of see what the numbers said, Matt. So you know, you had some interesting takes on the different feel and that sort of thing.
I think that's, and part of what I want to go through on this video is, you know, obviously there's spec differences, there's performance differences, but there's like a big feel difference between even the Modus 120 to the 130. I thought felt completely different.
Entirely different.
And I'm, to be honest with you, not like a big, oh, I felt this kind of guy. Like I can feel the difference, but I think to me the numbers and the performance of it is where I make the distinction. But even for me, I could say like the Dynamic Gold felt a certain way, Project X felt a certain way, and then the Modus shafts felt a certain way. So there's a lot going on there. You know, even if two different shafts gave people similar numbers, if you don't hit both of them to see which one you swing better and are comfortable with, you know, you could be leaving quite a bit out there. Yeah,
exactly. So you know, just so you guys know, we're going to be doing this with a wide range of other shafts. So again, you know, don't worry that we're doing this with some of the stiffer, heavier lines. We will be doing this same test where we test, you know, a PXI versus a Nippon Modus 105 versus, you know, an AMT Dynamic Gold, something that, you know, that's a little bit sort of lighter. But, you know, for today's, you know, purpose of the video, we're going to do the stiffer stuff right now. Looking across the board, really quite interesting. The there was a little bit of a difference in performance. So we saw the highest spin rates come from the Dynamic Gold X100, second highest with the Nippon 130, the Modus 130, and then after that was the Modus 120. So really, really interesting. Launch angles are all very, very similar.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, what, if you read a spec sheet, you'd expect Dynamic Gold to be the lowest launch.
Yes.
And should be the highest spinning, or not necessarily?
No, I mean they again, of their line, they are the most they're the lowest launch with lowest spin
for that line of shafts.
For that line of shafts. Now they do have the X7 shaft, which is a little bit stronger, but relative general terms, that's very low spin.
Yeah.
But this is what I see with Dynamic Gold X100. I honestly, this is exactly what I see. So if I want the launch to stay, fairly penetrating, but maybe want to kick the spin up a little bit,
you'll give someone Dynamic
I'll
Gold.
go Dynamic Gold X100.
Interesting.
I've always found Project X to spin less than X100. Always.
And I think when I first got my irons that I have now, they're too low in weight, obviously, but the Project X did spin a bit less for me. Yeah. And I think that's the main reason that I got them. Yeah. So that perception, I think a lot of people associate those things. So that is pretty much true for the most part. I mean, it depends on the person's swing. You were saying if someone's really steep, that they will get likely less spin from a Project X.
Yep, absolutely. Gotcha. And it's funny, I've always found, Project X to launch a little higher, spin a little less.
Right.
I've always found Dynamic Gold to launch a little lower, spin a little more.
Interesting.
Okay, so how it gets to that peak are sort of two different ways. So you've got Dynamic Gold that kind of starts lower and rises up to a high peak.
Yes.
Project X launches in the first third of the flight a little bit higher and then flattens out a little bit at the top because it's not as high spin.
Right.
That's what I've always found with it ever since I've worked with all the profiles.
So someone's got to make sure that, say they're already a high spin player and they need to knock spin off, not a good choice to go Dynamic Gold. Likely, like they may be adding a bit that way.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't advise.
You wouldn't go that way. So they could either look at a Modus. The Modus 120 would have some lower spin for them.
The TX version is certainly very
like if
stiff.
someone's really spinning it.
Yeah. But Project X for me would be
interesting.
And one that we're not adding in here is the KBS C taper.
C-tapers,
another one that's very good, very stiff, quite good for reducing spin.
Interesting, yeah.
Okay. In terms of the performance, it was quite interesting. When we done the shake up at the end, because Matt said to us that he's like, I really enjoyed the feel of the Project X 6.5 and the Modus 120.
Those were my favorite.
So when we kind of done the comparison,
and they're identical,
we couldn't believe how similar they were. I mean, almost exactly the same ball speed, launch, spin, dispersion, everything.
And this is like 15 shots too. Like that's crazy.
It was a lot of shots, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Across the board. I mean, we certainly hit a bunch of shots with them, at least 10 with each.
So is that according to what you know about those two shafts, is that kind of not totally surprising that they're similar in performance?
I think I said to you before I saw your numbers, I thought the Nippon would be the best for you, the 120 TX. And the other one, obviously, you're very familiar with, is the Project X because you play it.
That's what I have now, yeah. No, I think I saw that for sure. If I were to pick one today, I'd probably take the Modus just because it seemed to suit my swing better. Yeah. So tour usage-wise, there's guys that use all three.
All three,
obviously. Yeah. Different types of players, same way. And then in terms of your customers and what you fit for, what would you say is the highest percentage?
We do a lot in the 120 gram range. So whether it be Project X, whether it be Modus 120s, I mean, you guys have seen us working with that quite a lot in the videos. We really like that. We do really good with it for our type of customers with the Project X load zone.
Yep.
Really good as well.
And that's even lighter, right?
Yeah, and then for the later videos, we're going to show you that some of the other shafts we have, the Project X PXI, like we said, we'll go into some of the softer load zones that are same thing, 110 grams there or thereabouts. So show you guys basically what we see in the store and what the different shafts do for our customers.
Yeah, because it's interesting because the weight is really a big deal.
It's huge.
And the 130 plus grams of the Dynamic Gold, the regular ones, it's not really suited to a whole lot of people. You'd say?
Yeah, there's not that many people.
Because even for me, I don't think it suited me. I didn't like the feel of it as much, and the ball flight wasn't actually as good.
I know. That's exactly it. So the thing was, Dynamic Gold's a really old shaft now.
Yeah.
It's over 30 years old.
Changed.
It hasn't changed, so it's exactly the same as it was, back when they first made the profile. So, changing wall thickness in order to change weight is much, we know how to do that better now than we did back then.
Yep.
So they were only changing, between an R300 and an S400, there's 5 grams to 127 versus 132. Right. So you've got, R300 at 127, X100 and S300 at 130, and S400s are at 132. So there's only 5 grams difference between those.
And that lower end swing speed player, they don't need a 125 grand shaft most of the time.
Most of the time. And I tell you, the one guy who does, you've got the player who's a bit of what I would call a plane changer.
Plane changer.
Okay, so somebody who really kind of, maybe whips the club a little inside and the backswing, comes over the top on the way down, and that type of thing. That type of customer does benefit from extra weight.
From a little bit extra weight.
So if you tend to stray off plane and maybe you're a little excessive over the top, having a little bit of a heavier shaft can help with that.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, it's kind of, I think people kind of got at one point where Project X was like the hot shaft and everyone wanted that.
Yeah.
And maybe too many people got into it.
Yeah.
But it's good to know, there are players for each one.
Definitely.
And it's definitely worth testing. And a lot of the time, upcharge wise, even if they wanted a stock club, you can get most of these as a standard offering.
There you can now.
Yeah. So it's not like it's a crazy investment to go, and some Nippon shafts too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You get Nippon ones as well, and that type of thing. So, and again, for another day, we'll tell you why that is, why they offer them for no upcharge, and how that process goes. Big part of the build process,
right?
With the OEMs. So,
yeah, more to come on this stuff for sure. Yeah,
excellent. Okay, guys, hopefully that helps a little bit with kind of understanding who should use what particular type of shaft. We're going to expand in this series, try and educate you guys on what's out there and the different performance characteristics of them. But certainly as we delivered that, the numbers on that, there was a little bit of a change in dynamic goal being a little bit higher launch and spin than some of the other ones that are considered in the same category.
Some good general numbers.
Yeah.
Obviously, people need to be aware of their swing versus my swing in terms of the data,
which is important.
So we're going to show different angles of attack and kind of do some different videos with those profiles, just because obviously this is a good fit for me, but different characteristics might be a different shaft.
For sure.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.